President Maduro is taking on Trump and U.S. imperialism, which is in the works right now. This is a story we've been covering it for the last week. We know that Trump has sent out the Marines, 4,000 Marines surrounding Venezuela right now, ready for a ground operation. Maduro has been gathering his people, a militant operation that is said to be at least hundreds of thousands of citizens, creating a militant group there on the ground, people ready to fight back against the imperialist machine. Let's look at the story, how it's unfolding right now. The Financial Times report that came out recently here. Okay, so we have the U.S. naval built up near Venezuela stokes tensions in Latin America. So the deployment of warships and thousands of sailors prompts Maduro to call up militia. So looking further, the Pentagon is deploying the warships to the waters around Central and South America, an unusually large naval buildup that has stoked tensions with not just Venezuela, but other Latin American countries as well. So there's at least 7 vessels, including 3 guided missile destroyers and a bunch of other stuff, missile cruisers, a nuclear-powered fast attack submarine has also been deployed. So the Trump administration, the way they package that is it's part of the efforts to combat drug trafficking. That's the story. That's the cell line. And they've been accusing Nicolas Maduro, consistently accusing of him of being an illegitimate president and illegal. They're actually calling him illegal, which is really interesting choice of words. Illegal in his own country. Interesting word because they like to use the word illegal here. They're accusing him of trafficking drugs. As you guys know, if you've been watching our show, you know that the cartel, the drug cartels, are funded and sponsored by us, by the CIA. So when we talk about drug problems in Latin American countries, we need to implicate our own CIA because that's the history we have, and we could see it time and time again. The entire drug war that we saw being theatrically fought since the Nixon administration through the Reagan administration up until now, whether it was the crack cocaine epidemic in minority communities. How did those drugs get there? CIA. That's how. So when we talk about fighting our border crisis, we don't ever talk about the cartel being something that we're funding, not fighting, funding so we can then fight it. That's the point. That's our excuse. If you guys understand how this works, that's our excuse. If you don't have a drug problem in Venezuela, then you don't have that excuse to go and surround them and talk about a ground invasion. So why would we want to do that if it's not the drug cartel? That's our excuse. Why would we want to then? Maybe it's the oil. So you guys know that we've covered that. The biggest oil reserves, the biggest amount of oil in the entire planet is in Venezuela, a socialist country who democratically elects their leaders, and those leaders like to give their oil away for free in some cases, very cheap or for free. That's what they do with their oil. And American imperialism hates that. So these type of building up manufacturing consent is a tool, and it creates this in Trump's base. It creates this feeling of let's go stop them. And this is why Alex Jones decides he's going to make an exception for Maduro and say, well, he is a socialist communist, so we have to stop him. He's a drug pusher. They go to the extent of saying that Venezuela has infringed on our elections. It's the same garbage that they try with Russia. Why do we fall for this with Venezuela, but we don't fall for it with Russia? When I say we, I mean the people in the space that they're supposed to be calling out the war machine and the propaganda machine. People like Alex Jones, they seem to fall for this one for some weird reason. Here's just one example of one of the many, many MAGA posts that we're seeing going around these last few days. that are celebrating this move by Trump, literally pushing for yet another war. That's what's happening right now. This type of post. Pray for our 4,000 U.S. Marines. They have their orders. It's to arrest or kill. And they're talking about Nicolas Maduro, that he's an enemy. You got to arrest President Nicolas Maduro, enemy of the United States, and a drug lord. So all propaganda, not real. Very dangerous, actually, to be putting this garbage out there on behalf of Trump. Very, very dangerous. Adam E. Media will remind us about John Bolton in 2019. Who was president in 2019? That's right, Donald Trump. This is a quote from John Bolton. Our sanctions on Venezuela froze $7 billion in assets and will cost Venezuela $11 billion lost revenue next year. So this is how you cripple and hurt an economy. You put sanctions on them, and we've been doing this. We do this on at least a third of the entire planet, and we know that's how you destroy, or you attempt to destroy, a country. Not to mention all the coup attempts, all the claims of illegitimate president, which we've been doing. The other point that you guys have to understand is that it's not just the Republicans doing it, the Democrats do it too. They all want to take out Venezuela. And the fact that they're still alive today and not taken down is actually quite remarkable. So Adam ends his tweet with, socialism didn't destroy Venezuela. U.S. sanctions did, and created millions of immigrants. Now they're sending warships. Do you want to hear John Bolton talk about this in 2019? Here it is.
The podium over to Stephen Mnuchin. For this purpose, we're going to announce sanctions against Petroleras de Venezuela, Sociedad Anima, or PDVSA, as it's known by its Spanish acronym, the state-owned oil monopoly. We have continued to expose the corruption of Maduro and his cronies, and today's action ensures they can no longer loot the assets of the Venezuelan people. We expect, and Secretary Mnuchin will go into this in more detail, that today's measure totals $7 billion in assets blocked today, plus over $11 billion in lost export proceeds over the next year.
So this has been going on and on and on forever and ever. Now, Trump was in office then. It was one of the big standing ovations he got on one of his first State of the Union speeches, was right before COVID, which was in 2020, the famous day that infamously famous when Nancy Pelosi ripped up his speech. Nobody talks about what happened before that moment. What happened before that is everybody got on their feet and gave a standing ovation to who they called at the time the rightful president of Venezuela. They've been doing this the whole time, saying Maduro is not the official president, even though he's democratically elected, over and over. And everybody in the room stands up for this idea that Venezuela is illegitimate, that Chavez before Maduro and Maduro are illegitimate because they represent this socialism that we can't effing stand. And as Adam says, it didn't fail. So that system didn't fail. We made it fail. If socialism is so bad, why don't we let it fail on its own? If socialism is so bad, why don't we let it fail on its own? Why do we have to be the cause of its failure? It's a really good question that a lot of people they don't understand how to answer that. People that are afraid of capitalism and social, or that are afraid of communism and socialism, they can't answer that question. Why do we always have to bust them out at the kneecaps every single time? Well, let's look at what Maduro is doing in response. This is from RT. This just came out. Let's do this. Here we go. RT put this one out. I guess this was just earlier today. Let's see. This is just a little. So Venezuela says, women and youth step up. Wow. As thousands of U.S. Marines and destroyers approach. Can Caracas handle Pentagon mass attack? And that's what might be happening, guys. We might be seeing a mass attack from the Pentagon, directly from the Pentagon. Not really Trump. I'm telling you guys, it's not Trump saying, I'm going to do this today. I decided to do this. My dictator in me decided. No, this is a U.S. Pentagon operation. Trump has to be the face of the operation. But this is what the U.S. wanted the entire time. The entire time, U.S. wants Venezuela. They want the oil. They want the oil. Also, while we're at it, let's punish them for being critical of Israel. There's that too. By the way, Maduro has been critical of Israel. So throw that into the fire too and flame it. There it is. Here's this 22nd, I guess, call to the people to stand up in Venezuela and protect their country from the evil American imperialists, because that's what's happening.
We were ready years ago. But
Okay,
we are ready. Those of us who come from the armed forces, we were ready years ago. But we are ready, and the people are ready. And now comes the second phase, which must be announced. Here on your missions, what is certain is that our people, our companions, our women, our youth, have stepped up to defend the homeland from any aggression. We are ready. Those of us who come from the armed forces, we were ready years ago. But we are ready, and the people are ready. And now comes the second phase, which must be announced. Here on your missions, what is certain is that our people, our companions, our women, our youth, have stepped up to defend the homeland from any aggression. We are ready.
Sorry, guys, played it a few times there. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So that we'll have to keep an eye and see what happens next. But just in the meantime, if you get into conversations with people about this, the best approach I saw was this TikTok video. Let's watch this. This will give you guys some tools you can use to combat people who tell you, well, Maduro's different. He's the guy that this is different. Now, look, I get it. Ukraine's bad. I get it. Israel's bad. I get it. All of our Middle East, horrible behavior in the Middle East for the last 20, 30, 40 years is all bad. We're not falling for any of that. Okay. But Venezuela, watch this video. Maybe you can pick up something here, because there is no difference, guys. It's exactly the same script, the same effing script. Here you go.
Did you hear the news that we're invading a foreign country again? No, but this time it's because they're harboring a group that the government has designated as a terrorist organization, and not at all related to any of the natural resources that just so happen to be in the region. But also, we're going in to depose a terrible, awful dictator who is tormenting his people, and we're there to liberate them and spread the American way of democracy and freedom. Hey, did you guys hear that we're invading a foreign country again? Because they're harboring a group that the government has designated as a terrorist organization, and not at all related to any of the natural resources that just so happen to be in the area. But also, we're there to depose a terrible and awful dictator who is tormenting his people, and we're there to liberate them and spread the American ways of democracy and freedom.
Now, that's what I call manufacturing consent. We'll be right back after these messages.
That was George W. in the picture there. That's hilarious. Now that's what I call manufacturing consent. Exactly. A good one on that. That's that's it. Same effing script. So good job on that. I got to credit that creator. I think we've used him before. It's the name of the account. How do I change the name? So it's at How Do I Change the Name that put that together. So shout out for that one. And that's it. That's it, guys. We'll have to keep an eye on this story for you. But yeah, make no mistake. The U.S. wants to invade Venezuela, and Maduro is fighting back, and we'll see if they can hold up. I would have said 100%. There's no way. Well, never 100, but I would have said there's 99% sure that Maduro will hold his ground. He's done it before. He's survived many coups. Chavez before him survived many coups, many imperialist operations, and they've somehow managed to survive. I would have said 99% sure they'd survive. I'm not so sure. I'm almost down to 50-50 at this point, just because we saw what Trump and Israel were able to do to Syria. And they did that in 11 days. They got Assad out in 11 days. And like none of us saw that coming. So who knows? This could come down to the wire. We'll see. I might be closer to, I'd say 60%, 40% at this point. 60% that Maduro prevails. And we want that. We want him to prevail. We cannot allow another regime change war, illegal occupation and illegal stealing of resources. We can't do that. That's not okay, especially not right now with our hand in so many other cookie jars and all the different war crimes we're guilty of funding and escalating and defending and punishing people who have voices of dissent. We cannot take on yet another one. Okay, let me take a moment to introduce you to our good friends over at World Harvest Food Bank right here in LA. World Harvest has been serving families across Los Angeles for 18 years now, and they started with this simple idea. Everyone deserves access to healthy, affordable food no matter what they're going through. With their Cart with a Heart program, families can walk away with a full cart of groceries, fresh produce, dairy, meat, and pantry supplies for just a $50 contribution. That's for the entire cart. That same cart will cost over $300 at a typical grocery store. At World Harvest, everyone is welcome. They don't ask for income verification, ID, or any paperwork. No. Basically, their doors are open to anyone who's doing their best, but just needs a little extra push to get by. If you're an Angelino like me, you know the times have been tough here. First with all the union strikes, the LA fires, and now the ICE raids going on. It seems like we're living in a constant state of uncertainty. And that's why it's so important to support local charities like World Harvest, because they aren't just helping the community. They're an essential function in its very survival. World Harvest is located at Venice and Arlington. And right now, you can use our special discount code THL20 for 20% off your contribution amount at checkout. And if you're not in the LA area, you can still help out with a $50 donation, which will provide a full cart of food for a family by going to worldharvestfoodbank.org or scan the QR code for more info. Or you can just spread the word. Follow them online. Let people know they're here for them, because at the end of the day, it's about providing choice, access, and relief without barriers. World Harvest Food Bank. End hunger now.